Good morning, everyone. I have observed that there are thousands of motorcycles in Zamboanga City. In fact, in the previous week, I heard somebody sharing to me about an article he read from the internet telling that Zamboanga is like the motorcycle capital in the Philippines. We have more motorcycles in Zamboanga than any other cities in the country, according to that article. It's helping us a lot, though in many cases, it became a reason also for an early death or an injury. Because especially if the drivers are quite young, they just drive and very fast. They just get into the middle of vehicles. They don't care actually. Lalong-lalo na pag nagmamadali. So we have an excuse, we have the reason. This reminds me of my friend who traveled from Pagadian City to Zamboanga, bringing his XR 200cc. So that motorcycle was quite new, and he was in, I think, 30s that time. The motorcycle was new. The engine was at the peak of its condition. The suspension of the shock were really good. The wheels were still new. So he drove very fast on in the highway. XR 200. Maybe he was traveling with the speed of 100 to 140. Very fast. From a distance, he saw a bus coming. Inkwentro silang dalawa ng bus. Nung nakita niya yung bus, okay lang. Kasi nasa kabilang lane naman yung bus. Siya nasa kabila, coming to Zamboanga, ang bus puntang Pagadian. The problem was this. Yung malapit na magkasulubong sila ng bus, he did not notice that there was a pickup at the back of the bus who decided to overtake. So, ang pickup ang kaharap niya ngayon. At the speed of 100, it's hard for you to stop it. And also, the other vehicle would find difficult sa pag-stop kasi umarangkada yun sa likod ng bus. So, what he did, buti na lang hindi bangin yung sa kabilang side, he decided to go down from the cement, go down from the main road, and andun siya napunta sa side. And fortunately, hindi siya natumba. But you know what happened after that? He stopped, he put off the engine of the motorcycle, and he sat down at the side for 30 minutes. And he was thinking about this hypothetical statement in his mind. What if the accident happened at 100 kilometers per hour speed with a pickup that will collide you and you are in a motorcycle? I cannot spell your appearance after such incident. So he was thinking, what if the accident took place? And he started thinking about his family, his kids. He's still very young. He's still in his 30s. What if it happened? There are many situations in life that you and I escape a certain danger. And sometimes it brings us to a condition to think about what if it happened? What if the accident took place? I would certainly die. You know, death is real. Death is real. But the younger you are, you don't think about it. I tell you. Kids below 10 years old, they never think of death. Because they just think about playing. They think about toys. They think about games. Those are the things inside their minds. So the younger you are, the farther is the possibility of thinking about death. How about those teenagers? I tell you, teenagers won't think about death. Only except an accident would confront them. But in a normal way of living, they won't think about death. Teenagers would think about computer games, gadgets. They would think about social media. They would think about their crushes, oftentimes. They would think about their school, their classmates. Those are the things inside the mind of the young ones. Death, very rare that they would imagine about death. How about those who are young professionals, 20 above, going to 30 and 40? Not also that often. I believe these people would just think about their career. Where will I work? Where will I apply? See, we change the contents of our thoughts as we progress in life. Where will I apply? Or if you are working already, how will I impress my boss so that I would receive a higher appointment? Or how will I get promoted? How will I have my superiors be convinced about increasing my salary? Or you think about, how will I accomplish the work that it would be very impressive? Things like that are occupying the minds of individuals beyond 22, 35, or 14, even sometimes 50. We think about careers. We think about how to improve our financial condition. We think about our social status often. But the mindset of those people who would getting their age closer to 60, nagbabago na yung isip. I heard of a preacher in a funeral service. He said that the older you get, the more death becomes so real to you. Because he was already in his, I think, almost 70 or 70 plus na tong taong to. He said, I am old already. And there are times in the evening that before I close my eyes, a thing that would come into my brain is, when will I die? Because the Bible tells us that the age of human beings, normal age, is 70. If there is enough strength, you would reach 80. So yung mga nasa almost 60, papuntang 70, nag-iisip na yan. The point of the matter why I'm telling you this is, the message today, which is entitled Numbered, is appropriate not only to the old ones, those who are getting 60, 60 plus, 70 plus, or even 80 plus. Or do we have someone here who is already 100-year-old? This is not only relevant to them, but this is also relevant to the younger ones. Because we cannot tell. Accidents can happen, natural calamity could come, or even sicknesses could come to us. We don't know. So this message is for all. Because though it's a reality that 70 is the normal age, death would confront all of us anytime within the day. So there is an advice from the book of Psalms, Psalm 90, in which it was written by Moses. So let us learn from this passage. Psalm 90, verses 1 to 12. I'll read from the NASB. It says here, Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you gave birth to the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You turn man back into dust and say, return, O children of men. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it passes by, or as a watch in the night. You have swept them away like a flood. They fall asleep. In the morning they are like grass which sprouts anew. In the morning it flourishes and sprouts anew. Toward evening it fades and withers away. For we have been consumed by your anger, and by your wrath we have been dismayed. You have placed our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. For all our days have declined in your fury. We have finished our years like a sigh. As for the days of our life, they contain 70 years. Take note of that. Or if due to strength, 80 years. Yet their pride is but labor and sorrow, for soon it is gone, and we fly away. Who understands the power of your anger and your fury, according to the fear that is due you? So teach us to number our days, that we may present to you a heart of wisdom. May the good Lord bless the reading of His words. The psalmist here is exposing to us the reality about the shortness of life. Life is indeed very short. It's like a mist in the morning. And I think the song sung by Casting Crowns is really real. It says, I am a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow, a wave tossed in the ocean, a vapor in the wind. That's a reality in life. Because whether you like it or not, whether you have observed it or not, life is very short. Very short. Especially when you look at it from the perspective of eternity. Now let us look at what Moses said here. This psalm was written by Moses, not David, okay? This was written by Moses. And let us look at the first verse when he said this. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Today, when we think of generation, we go to the internet, we Google it, what does it mean by generation? And we would see that different generations we have in our time. There are some who belong to Generation X. There are some who belong to Generation Y, or the millennials. They call themselves the millennials. And there are some people also who belong in the middle of it, which they call the senials. Okay? This is how we see generations today. But when you look at the scriptures, they did not think it the way we do today. When they use the word generation, they think about the people who existed at a certain period of time. They think about your grandparents, that's one generation. Your parents, that's one generation. Your generation, that's another. And then your children is another generation. And then your grandchildren is another generation. So that's how they think in the scriptures. So when Moses wrote this psalm, he was quite old already. And he said this, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. He was thinking about the earlier generations in the past. Look at this. Click it, please. He's thinking about Abraham. He's thinking about Isaac. Because an Israelite, a Jew, would start counting their generations from Abraham. Why? Because it was Abraham who was called by God. Abraham, you live from the land where you are right now, and I'm going to bring you to that land where milk and honey is flowing. Okay? I'm going to bring you there. You have to follow me by faith. So Abraham was the first person called by God, and that calling was heading towards a nation of Israel. So when Moses wrote this, in a very advanced way of thinking and backwards way of thinking, he's thinking about generations in the past. From Abraham to Moses, he is the 7th generation. So there are 6 generations from Abraham, and then 7 si ang generation ni Moses. And he said, Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. He was recalling about those people in the past. And he's been saying to the Lord, Lord, you have been existing even in the time of those people na fathers, lolos namin. Andun ka na. And in fact, in the next line, he said this. Look at this. He said, before the mountains were born, or you gave birth to the earth and the world. Now earlier, he was talking about generations from Abraham. But this time, he pushed even backwards. He's talking about the creation time. When you look at the first verse in the Bible, Genesis 1:1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God. In other words, there was nothing before God, but before everything, there was God already. So Moses is talking about the God of the beginnings. He's honoring God. He's praising God. You are so great. You are infinite. You are limitless. And he continued in the last portion of that verse too, even from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. So Moses is looking at the vastness of God's existence. If that is the beginning of time, God's there already. And if it's through eternity, God has been there. And from this perspective, he made a comparison between God's infiniteness and the finiteness of man. Let's move forward to verse 10, okay? We will find in verse 10 this statement. As the days of our life, they contain 70 years only. Or if due to some to strength, 80 years. 80 years. Ganun lang kaigsi yung life ng tao. So, this is what I'm trying to tell you. If If the beginning of time is that wall, and eternity goes beyond that wall, okay? God was there, God is here, God is somewhere here, and God would always be there all throughout eternity. He would be there always. But we as limited human beings, maybe somewhere in that span of time, our life was just like this in this area, or maybe in this area, or maybe in this area. It's just too short from the perspective of eternity. Too short. Now, sometimes you don't notice that life is short because you're into the very details of it, di ba? You're waiting for someone to come. Grabe naman, ang tagal naman na mag-start ng program ng church natin. Oh, 9:30 dapat mag-start, 9:31 na, hindi pa nagso-start. So, if you wait for time and you are in the very details of it, you are in the micro aspect, you won't be able to notice that time is running so fast. But if you learn to step back, you step back from the micro scenario, you step back and you start looking from a distance, you would realize that life is short. Just an observation. It was just as if very recent when we celebrated our Christmas, 2016 Christmas, right? But let me ask you this. What month are we in now? July. Okay? July. We are already more than halfway of the year. August, September, October, November, December. 5 months, less than 5 months later, we will celebrate Christmas again. Have you noticed that? Time runs so fast. Very fast. I have been with Zikaek for 14 years, almost 14 years. And as if it was just yesterday when I ministered to the young ones. But just recent years, few of them got married already, and I officiated their wedding. And some of them already have kids that I dedicated to the Lord. Time flies. And that tells me that I'm getting old. Time moves fast. If you are in the micro aspect, you won't notice it. You wait for your girlfriend, for your wife. Well, in the morning, you wake up in the morning so early, your appointment is 8 o'clock, and you talk about leaving the house at 7:30, and 7:25 you're already in the car. You started the car, the engine is ready, but your family is not. And you're waiting, you start beep, 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 and they're still not coming out. You look at your time, oh, time is just running fast. Time is fast. Life is short. There's a video here. This is an advertisement created by Xbox 360. And this would summarize what I'm talking about, okay? Let's watch this video. That looks funny, but that's reality. Life is short. Very, very short. The Bible tells us you have normally 70 years of existence. And many of us don't notice that the number of years remaining is not getting longer. It's getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Let me illustrate it with this. They call this the pebble principle. Okay? I did not have some time to pick up some pebbles, so I asked my beautiful wife to buy this marble thing like glass here. And I have here 78 pieces of this inside. 78 pieces. Now, this represents your life. Okay? This represents the number of years you spent. This represents your life. This represents the number of years you spent. Take note, the Bible says that normally it's 70 years. Okay, without thinking the accidents, the sickness, not thinking about those things. just the normal life that God has given to us, 70 years. Now, this is the number of years you spent. This is your life. At the very beginning, of course, bakante. Kasi, hindi ka pa sinisilang. Now, you were born and you celebrated your first birthday. You're 1 year old. You remove from this one of this and put it here. Meaning to say, you look at the number of years you spent, 1 year. You look at the remaining time of your life, mandami pa, di ba? But paano pag 35 years old ka na ngayon? Kagaya ko. Just had my 35th birthday this week. Okay, 6. Bawasan natin ng more, 5. 11. And then 15. Plus 6, 17. 21. 21 plus 4, 25. And then 4, 6, 31. 31 and then 34 and 35. This is the life that you spent. Look at your life, your remaining time. Marami pa. Di ba? And many people, kung marami pa, we don't take it seriously. Because we still have a lot of time. Di ba? Pag may requirements, for students here, raise your hands. Raise your hands. Raise your hands. Okay. Okay. We have some students here. Remember when your teacher gave you an assignment to be passed or to be submitted on the following week? And it's still Sunday, so you still have 1 week to submit. 1 week to make it, and the next week, next Monday, you'll submit it. So I have 1 week. Now, who among of you would say, I'll start making my assignment tomorrow? Di ba wala? On Tuesday, wala pa rin. Nobody's gonna make the assignment on Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they would begin. Not begin making. They will begin thinking of making the requirements to be submitted on Monday. Di ba? Pagdating ng Sunday, they would start, cramming na yon. Hindi pa yan magagawa morning kasi mag-church pa siya. So after ng hapon, mulaag pa sa hapon, paggabi, yun na ang beginning. Kasi magsasubmit at 7 o'clock in the morning. So, realities in life, sometimes in the overall aspect of life, it's like that. I still have a lot of time. I won't live my life in a very serious way. So, I'm 35. Maybe 5 years later, I'll do. So, pagkatapos ng 5 years, you are already 40. It's like this. Di pa naman ako mamamatay, 70 years pa yon. Still far, right? So, you're already 40. 45. Still a lot. 50. Still a lot. Right? 55. It's getting fewer. Who among of you here are 55 years and above? Don't raise your hand. I know you won't like to do that. 55. And what if you are already 60? This is the life that you spent. This is the remaining time you have. What if you are already 55, 65? 65. Your years are few. And this is reality in life. No one among us na nag-i-increase yung year habang tumatagal. Ang age lang natin ang nag-i-increase. But your remaining time is getting shorter and shorter and shorter every year. And this is what Moses said. Look at verse 12. This is what he said. Click it, please. There you go. Okay. Pause first. God is presenting a contrast here. In verses 1 and 2, Moses praised God because He's eternal. Okay? God's existence started in the very beginning of all things, and then all throughout eternity, God is there. So yun ang sabi ni Moses kay God, Lord, you are eternal. You are infinite. And in verse 10, he described about man, and we are temporary because our lives are very short. When you look at it from the perspective of eternity, it's just very short. It's just like a dot within eternity. So, since this is a reality to all of us, this is the thing that Moses asked the Lord to do to him. Verse 12, look at that. And Moses said, so teach us to number our days, that we may present to you a heart of wisdom. Teach us to number our days, so that we will be able to present to God a heart of wisdom. Now, I'm just not talking to those beyond 50 years old today, okay? I'm talking to every one of you. How old are you now? You subtract that from 70. That's your remaining years on earth. How are you going to use those remaining years you have? Don't just squander it. Don't just squander it. Use it for the glory and honor of God. If you are 60 years old, kusog na kayo ang tingog sa garapon. Diba? If you are 60 and above, it's like that. And you have few remaining more years. If you are 20, then well, you have around 50 years. Then you gotta ask the question, Lord, how am I going to make this life even more productive, looking forward on that time when you will take me to be with you in your home? How am I going to live this life in a more productive sense? If you are in your 30s, don't just think about yourself. You also think about being productive and leaving a legacy in the future. And when you are in your 60s and 70s, the sound is getting louder, and I think you start thinking also, how am I going to make my life productive, Lord, from your perspective in my remaining years? Because if you are already 70 years old, your stock is empty. All of those years you have are bonus from God. 80 na ka, 90, 100, those are bonus years from the Lord to you. Now, spend your remaining years in a very productive sense that it would bring glory and honor to the Lord. Your years, the remaining time is not getting longer. It's getting smaller and shorter every year. Live your lives wisely for the honor and glory of our God. To God be the glory.